Audiobook The Resonance Bond by the Third Library. Introduction. Picture yourself seated in a darkened cinema, watching a film that breaks your heart. On the screen, the person you love turns away from you, their face cold and indifferent. You shout at the screen, begging them to turn around, to see you, to love you. Your voice grows hoarse with desperation. You plead with the projected image to change its mind, to rewrite its dialogue, to transform the narrative unfolding before your eyes. But the screen remains unchanged. The actors continue their scripted movements, blind and deaf to your anguish. This is the fundamental error of human relationships. We scream at the screen, forgetting entirely that the screen has no power to alter itself. The screen is merely a surface upon which light is cast. It holds no agency, no will, no capacity for independent action. Every flicker of movement, every word spoken, every gesture of rejection or acceptance originates not from the screen itself, but from the projection booth, hidden in the darkness above and behind you. In that booth sits the true author of your experience, your own consciousness, running its film reel of beliefs, assumptions, and definitions through the mechanisms of manifestation. The projector casts its beam, and the screen obeys with perfect fidelity. To change what appears on the screen, you must rise from your seat, climb the stairs to the booth, and change the film reel itself. This audiobook is that journey to the projection booth. What you are about to encounter is not relationship advice in the conventional sense. This is not a manual for negotiation, compromise, or communication tactics designed to convince another autonomous being to behave differently toward you. Such approaches assume the fundamental existence of separation, the belief that you and the other person are two distinct entities engaged in a cosmic bargaining session, each wielding independent free will that may or may not align with your desires. That paradigm is the source of all relational suffering, and it is built upon a metaphysical error of staggering proportions. The truth, as ancient mystics and modern quantum theorists alike have whispered, is that there is no other in the absolute sense. The person standing before you, the lover who ignites your passion or devastates your heart, the friend who betrays you, the parent who wounds you, these are not separate consciousnesses operating independently of your own. They are reflections, projections, holographic expressions of your internal state broadcast into the three-dimensional theater we call reality. They are you, pushed out into apparent externality, mirrors held up to show you precisely what you believe about yourself, about love, about worthiness, about the very nature of human connection. This understanding forms the foundation of what we call the resonance bond. It is not a bond between two people in the traditional sense, but rather the energetic cord connecting your inner convictions to their outer manifestation in human form. When you change the definition you hold of another person in the secret chambers of your consciousness, that person must change in your experienced reality. They have no choice in this matter. The mirror does not debate with the face it reflects. It simply shows what is presented to it with mechanical precision and absolute neutrality. The implications of this law are both liberating and terrifying. Liberating because it places absolute power in your hands. No one can reject you unless you first reject yourself. No one can abandon you unless you hold the belief of unworthiness that makes abandonment inevitable. Terrifying because it strips away the comfortable delusion that your suffering is someone else's fault, that if only they would change, if only they would see your value, if only they would choose you, then everything would be different. The responsibility for every relational dynamic you have ever experienced rests entirely upon your shoulders. You are the projector, the architect, the author of every scene that has ever unfolded between you and another. This audiobook will guide you through the mechanics of the resonance bond with surgical precision. You will learn why pedestals create distance, why neediness repels, why inner conversations become outer realities. You will discover techniques for rewriting the narrative, for dissolving old stories that keep painful patterns alive, for entering the state of the beloved, that quiet internal condition where love is not sought but possessed, not hoped for but assumed. Each chapter builds upon the last, constructing a complete metaphysical architecture of relationships that operates on principles most people never encounter in their entire lives. We will explore the physics of importance and how the energetic weight you assign to another person determines their behavior toward you. We will examine the telepathic nature of thought and how the arguments you conduct silently in your mind are felt by the person miles away, shaping their responses before a single word is spoken aloud. We will delve into the quantum nature of the specific person, that individual who occupies your thoughts and dreams, and learn how to tune into the version of them that already loves you while allowing the cold, indifferent version to fade from your experience like a ghost dissolving in daylight. This is pragmatic mysticism in its purest form. These are not abstract philosophical concepts meant to be pondered and discussed in ivory towers. These are operational laws, as reliable as gravity, as testable as any scientific principle. Apply them with precision and consistency, and the person you love will transform before your eyes. Not because you convinced them, not because you manipulated them, not because circumstances aligned in your favor, but because you changed the film reel in the projection booth of your own consciousness. The screen had no choice but to reflect the new image. The question is not whether this works. The question is whether you have the courage to accept that it has always been working, that every relationship you have ever experienced was a perfect reflection of your internal state, and that the power to create the love story you desire has never resided anywhere but within your own mind. You are not a beggar at the door of someone else's heart. You are the door, the house, the entire kingdom. They are waiting for you to realize this, so they can finally play the role you have always wanted them to play. The role they have been rehearsing in the quantum field since the moment you first thought of them. Welcome to the resonance bond. The manual for the projector has arrived. The screen is ready. The only question that remains is, what film will you choose to run? Chapter 1. The Mirror Principle. At the foundation of all relational dynamics lies a single axiom that shatters conventional understanding. There is no other in the ultimate sense. The person you love, the person you hate, the person who fills your thoughts with longing or despair, these are not autonomous beings operating independently of your consciousness. They are mirrors, reflective surfaces, upon which your internal definitions are projected with flawless accuracy. This is not metaphor. This is not poetic language. This is the literal mechanism by which your experienced reality is constructed, moment by moment, interaction by interaction, relationship by relationship. Consider the nature of a physical mirror. When you stand before it, it shows you exactly what you present to it. If you smile, it smiles. If you frown, it frowns. If you turn away, the reflection turns away. The mirror holds no independent opinion about whether you should smile or frown. It has no preference, no agenda, no will of its own. It is a passive receiver of information, translating your image into a visible reflection through the laws of optics. You would never stand before a mirror, see a frowning face and shout at the mirror to smile. You would recognize immediately the absurdity of such an action. To change the reflection, you must change your face. The mirror will follow instantly and without resistance. Yet this is precisely how most people approach their relationships. They see another person treating them with indifference or rejection, and they attempt to change that person's behavior through persuasion, manipulation, or desperate displays of worth. They believe they are dealing with an independent agent who must be convinced to behave differently, who possesses free will that may or may not align with their desires. This paradigm assumes separation, the belief that you and the other person are two distinct points of consciousness negotiating the terms of your connection. From this paradigm, relational suffering is inevitable because you are perpetually at the mercy of someone else's choices. The mirror principle reveals a different reality. The other person is not separate from you in the way you have been taught to believe. At the level of consciousness that precedes physical manifestation, there is only one mind, one field of awareness experiencing itself through infinite focal points. What you call you and them are two expressions of the same underlying consciousness, temporarily convinced of their separateness by the hypnotic spell of three-dimensional existence. In this unified field, your assumptions about another person are not merely beliefs you hold in isolation. They are energetic commands that shape how that person must show up in your experience. When you hold the belief that you are unlovable, the universe does not argue with you. It does not send you people who will prove your belief wrong through their unconditional acceptance. Instead, it obeys your command with perfect precision. It sends you people who validate your belief, who treat you as unlovable, who confirm the definition you hold about yourself. This is not punishment. This is not cruelty. This is simply the law of resonance in action. The external world is not set up to challenge your beliefs. It is set up to reflect them back to you so you can see what you are holding in consciousness. If you believe a specific person finds you annoying, they will find you annoying. If you believe they see you as inferior, they will treat you as inferior. If you believe they are indifferent to your existence, they will be indifferent. These are not coincidences. These are not the unfortunate results of personality clashes or incompatibility. These are the mechanical outputs of the mirror principle, as predictable as the reflection you see when you stand before glass. The person has no choice in this matter. They are compelled by the energetic structure of reality itself to validate whatever belief you hold about them, about yourself in relation to them, about the nature of your connection. This is where the true power reveals itself. If the other person is a mirror reflecting your internal state, then you do not need their cooperation to change the relationship. You do not need to convince them of anything. You do not need to wait for them to have an epiphany or undergo a transformation. You simply need to change what you are presenting to the mirror. Change the belief you hold about yourself, and the reflection changes instantly. Change the definition you hold about them, and they must reorganize their behavior to match the new definition. The mirror has no capacity to resist. Many resist this teaching because it strips away the comfortable narrative of victimhood. It is far easier to blame the other person for their cruelty, their coldness, their failure to recognize your value. In that narrative, you are innocent and they are guilty. You are the abandoned lover, the rejected friend, the undervalued partner, and they are the villain who inflicted this pain upon you. But this narrative, while emotionally satisfying, leaves you powerless. If they are the cause of your suffering, then your happiness depends entirely on their choices. You become a beggar, waiting at the door of their heart, hoping they will one day decide to let you in. The mirror principle offers a different path. It tells you that every moment of rejection you have experienced was not caused by the other person's free will, but by the image you were holding of yourself in consciousness. They were simply playing the role you assigned them through your beliefs. If you felt unworthy, they had to show you unworthiness. If you felt like an option rather than a priority, they had to treat you as an option. The script was written in your mind before the scene ever played out in physical reality. They were actors following your direction with perfect fidelity, even though neither of you consciously realized what was happening. This understanding transforms the entire game. You are no longer trying to fix the mirror. You are no longer attempting to convince the reflection to smile while you frown. You are turning your attention away from the external image and toward the internal generator of that image. You are going to the projection booth. You are changing the film reel. And when you do this with clarity and conviction, when you hold a new image of yourself and of the other person with unwavering consistency, the mirror must update. The person must transform. Not because you manipulated them, but because the energetic signature you are broadcasting has changed, and they are simply responding to the new frequency. This is not a process of convincing yourself of something you do not believe. This is not positive thinking or affirmations repeated robotically while your inner state remains unchanged. This is a fundamental shift in self-concept, a redefining of who you are in relation to the other person. It requires you to see yourself as loved, as chosen, as valued, not because external evidence supports this, but because you decide it is true at the level of consciousness that precedes evidence. When this internal shift occurs, when the new self-concept solidifies, the mirror has no choice but to reflect it back to you in the form of changed behavior from the other person. The beauty of the mirror principle is its simplicity. You are not learning to control other people. You are learning to control yourself. You are learning to take command of your own consciousness, to become the master of your internal state rather than the slave of external circumstances. When you master this, when you realize that every relationship you have ever experienced was a reflection of your beliefs about yourself, you step into a power that most people never access. You become the architect of your relational reality, and the other person becomes the willing participant in whatever dynamic you choose to create. There is no rejection unless you reject yourself first. There is no abandonment unless you hold the belief that you are not worth staying for. There is no coldness unless you are radiating the frequency of unworthiness that demands coldness as its reflection. The person standing before you is not your judge, your evaluator, or your gatekeeper. They are your mirror, and mirrors do not lie. They show you exactly what you are broadcasting. Change the broadcast, and the mirror must change. This is the law. This is the foundation. This is where the journey to mastery begins. The question you must ask yourself is not, how do I get them to love me, but rather, what version of myself am I presenting to the mirror? The answer to that question determines everything. The person you see when you look at the reflection is not the person you are dealing with. It is the person you are being. Change who you are being in consciousness, and the reflection transforms instantly. This is not theory. This is the operational mechanics of the resonance bond, the law that governs every relationship you have ever experienced. Master the mirror, and you master the relationship. There is no other way. Dirty Chapter 2, The Pedestal Problem. One of the most insidious patterns in human relationships is the act of elevation, the practice of placing another person on a pedestal and worshipping them from below. This is done with the purest intentions. You see their beauty, their qualities, their value, and you hold them in such high regard that they become larger than life in your consciousness. You think this is love. You think this is admiration. But energetically, this is the creation of a hierarchical structure that guarantees distance, rejection, and pain. When you place someone on a pedestal, they have no choice but to look down on you. This is not a moral failing on their part. This is simply the physics of importance. Energy follows structure. When you position yourself below another person in the hierarchy of value, you create a gravitational slope between you. They sit at the top, elevated and exalted. You sit at the bottom, gazing upward with longing and reverence. The natural flow of energy in this configuration moves downward from them to you, but not in the way you hope. It does not flow as love or reciprocation. It flows as condescension, as pity, as the inevitable dynamic that emerges when one person holds themselves as superior and the other accepts the position of inferior. You created this dynamic the moment you built the pedestal. Consider the literal physics of a pedestal. It is a raised platform designed to display an object of value, to separate it from the common ground where ordinary things rest. When you place a person on such a platform, you are making a statement about relative worth. You are saying, you are above me. You are more valuable than me. You are the prize and I am the seeker. You are the one with power and I am the one who needs your approval. This energetic declaration becomes the foundation of your connection. They cannot step down from the pedestal because you are actively holding them there with the force of your belief, and from that elevated position, the only way they can look at you is downward. This is why pedestalization always leads to rejection or indifference. The person on the pedestal begins to internalize the role you have assigned them. They start to believe that they are indeed above you, that your adoration is their due, that your presence is less valuable than their attention. They do not consciously choose this dynamic, but consciousness responds to the energetic signatures being broadcast, not to the intentions behind them. You intended to show love through your reverence. What you actually broadcast was, I am beneath you. I am lucky to receive even scraps of your attention. Please, from your position of superiority, grant me the gift of your love. No one respects a beggar. This is not a judgment about morality or kindness. This is simply how energy moves in relational dynamics. When you approach another person from a position of lack, when you signal through your thoughts and behaviors that they possess something you desperately need and do not have, you create a vacuum that repels rather than attracts. The pedestal is the physical manifestation of this vacuum. It announces to the universe, there is a gap between us. They are up there, I am down here, and I am trying to bridge the distance through the force of my longing. The resonance bond requires equality, not the superficial equality of political correctness or forced egalitarianism, but the energetic equality that comes from recognizing your inherent value as identical to theirs. They are not better than you. They are not more valuable, more worthy, more deserving of love and respect. They are a human being with flaws and wounds and insecurities, just as you are. The version of them that sits on the pedestal in your mind is not the real person. It is an idealized projection, a fantasy construct that you worship precisely because it allows you to avoid confronting your own worth. When you pedestalize someone, you are engaging in a subtle form of self-rejection. You are saying, I am not enough as I am. I need to attach myself to someone superior in order to have value. This belief radiates from you like a frequency, and the other person receives it at a subconscious level. They feel the energetic weight of your self-rejection, and it makes them uncomfortable in your presence. Not because they are cruel, but because your energy is asking them to validate your unworthiness, to play the role of the elevated one while you play the role of the diminished one. Most people will unconsciously step into this role, which is why pedestalization seems to work initially. They enjoy the admiration, but the dynamic is unsustainable. Over time, the person on the pedestal grows tired of the role. They sense that you do not see them as a real human being with complexity and flaws. You see them as a symbol, an idol, a means to fill the void of your own self-worth. This realization, even if never spoken aloud, creates resentment. They begin to pull away, to create distance, to respond with coldness. You interpret this as rejection, as proof that you were right to see them as above you, as confirmation that you are not good enough. But in truth, they are simply responding to the energetic structure you created. They are sliding down the slope you built with your beliefs. The solution is not to pretend you do not value the person or to swing to the opposite extreme of arrogance and contempt. The solution is to dismantle the pedestal entirely and place both of you on level ground. This requires a fundamental shift in perception. You must begin to see yourself as the prize, as the person of value, as the one whose attention is a gift rather than a burden. This is not ego inflation. This is accurate self-assessment from an energetic standpoint. You are a unique expression of consciousness, irreplaceable and inherently valuable. So are they. Neither of you is above or below the other. You are equals engaging in a dance of mutual exchange. When you operate from this place of equality, the entire dynamic shifts. You no longer seek their approval because you approve of yourself. You no longer wait for them to validate your worth because you have validated it internally. You no longer place them above you because you recognize that elevation creates separation, and separation is the opposite of intimacy. From this grounded position, you become magnetic in a way that desperation can never achieve. People are drawn to those who stand in their own power, who recognize their value without arrogance, who offer love from a place of overflow rather than lack. This is why the most attractive people are not those who chase, plead, or worship. They are those who simply exist in a state of self-possession, who move through the world as if they already have everything they need. This is not an act or a strategy. This is the natural result of dismantling the pedestal, of refusing to position yourself as less than anyone else, of claiming your seat at the table as an equal participant in the relational dance. When you do this, the person you love has no choice but to respond differently. The energetic slope has been flattened. The dynamic of looking down can no longer exist because there is no longer an up or down. There is only two people standing face to face on common ground. The pedestal problem is one of the most common causes of relational suffering, and yet it is rarely recognized for what it is. People believe they are showing love through their reverence, demonstrating devotion through their worship. But the energetic truth is that they are creating distance, signaling unworthiness, and guaranteeing the very rejection they fear. The pedestal must be destroyed, not so you can diminish the other person, but so you can elevate yourself to the position you have always deserved. Only from that place of equality can the resonance bond function as it is meant to function. Two people reflecting each other's wholeness rather than one person reflecting the other's lack. Take them down. Stand beside them. Meet their eyes as an equal. This is where love begins, not in the gaze of worship from below, but in the recognition of shared humanity, shared value, shared worth. The pedestal was always an illusion, a construct of your own fear. Dismantle it and watch what happens. The person who once looked down at you from above will step down willingly, gratefully, and stand beside you as they were always meant to. The resonance bond requires nothing less than this radical equality. Anything else is a distortion that creates pain for both parties. Choose the level ground. Choose yourself. The rest will follow. Chapter 3. Inner Conversations. The battlefield of relationships is not located in the physical world of spoken words and visible actions. It exists in the invisible realm of inner conversations, those silent dialogues you conduct with another person in the privacy of your own mind. These conversations are not merely idle thoughts or harmless fantasies. They are energetic transmissions, telepathic broadcasts that reach the other person regardless of physical distance and shape their responses to you before a single word is spoken aloud. Most relational warfare happens in silence, in the arguments you have with them while they sleep, in the accusations you hurl at their imagined form while sitting alone in your room. Every thought you think about another person is a form of prayer. Not prayer in the religious sense of petition to a deity, but prayer in the metaphysical sense of focused attention that shapes reality. When you replay conversations in your mind, imagining what they said and how you should have responded, you are not merely processing the past. You are reinforcing it, feeding it with your energy, keeping it alive in the eternal present where all creation occurs. When you anticipate future interactions with anxiety, imagining them rejecting you or treating you coldly, you are not preparing for possibilities. You are creating those possibilities, broadcasting the script they will unconsciously follow when you finally meet. The other person feels your inner conversations, not through spoken words, but through the subtle energetic channels that connect all consciousness. At a level beneath conscious awareness, they receive the emotional content of your thoughts about them. When you silently rage at them for not texting you back, they feel the accusation as an energetic pressure. When you imagine them with someone else, happy and indifferent to your absence, they feel your jealousy and your fear. These feelings create discomfort in their system, an unease they cannot explain or identify. And because the human nervous system naturally withdraws from sources of discomfort, they pull away from you without understanding why. This is why people often report that the moment they let go of someone, that person suddenly reaches out. The explanation is not mysterious. When you let go, you stop the barrage of accusatory inner conversations. You stop broadcasting neediness, anger, and fear in their direction. The energetic pressure lifts. They can finally breathe in your presence, even your mental presence. And in that space of relief, they find themselves thinking of you, reaching for their phone, wondering why they have not connected. This is not coincidence. This is the direct result of changing the inner conversation from one of lack and demand to one of peace and release. The technique for transforming relationships through inner conversations is both simple and profound. You must become the director of your mental theater. Instead of allowing your mind to run wild with worst-case scenarios and painful memories, you deliberately construct the conversations you want to have. You hear them saying the words you long to hear. I love you. I am sorry. I choose you. You are the most important person in my life. You imagine their voice speaking these words with sincerity and warmth. You feel the emotional impact of receiving this communication. You do this repeatedly, consistently, until these imagined conversations feel more real than the painful ones you used to rehearse. This is not self-delusion. This is reality construction. The imagined conversation is taking place in the same realm where all physical events are first formed, the realm of consciousness. When you shift the inner conversation, you are literally changing the template from which physical interactions will manifest. The other person, connected to you through the unified field of consciousness, receives the new template. They do not consciously know that you have changed your inner dialogue, but their behavior toward you begins to shift. They soften, they reach out, They express the very sentiments you have been hearing them speak in your mind. Many struggle with this technique because they believe it requires them to ignore reality. They see evidence that the person does not love them, does not want them, does not think about them, and they believe it would be foolish to imagine otherwise. But this objection reveals a misunderstanding of how reality works. The evidence you see is not the cause of your experience, it is the effect. It is the manifestation of previous inner conversations, previous beliefs, previous energetic broadcasts. By the time something appears in your physical reality, it is already old news. It is the fossilized remains of thoughts you held days, weeks, or months ago. When you change your inner conversations now, you are not denying current reality. You are creating future reality. You are planting seeds in consciousness that will bloom in physical form once they have been given enough consistent attention. The person who treats you coldly today is responding to the inner conversations you held last week. When you accused them of not caring, when you rehearsed their rejection, when you energetically pushed them away with your fear. The person who will treat you warmly tomorrow is being created by the inner conversations you hold today, where you hear them expressing love, where you feel their devotion, where you accept their care as natural and inevitable. The power of inner conversations extends beyond romantic relationships. Every relational dynamic in your life is shaped by the silent dialogues you conduct. The difficult co-worker who undermines you is responding to the arguments you have with them in your head. The distant family member who never reaches out is mirroring the conversations where you rehearse their neglect. The friend who betrayed you is playing the role you assigned them through your fearful imaginings. In every case, the external behavior is the mirror of the internal conversation. Change the conversation, and the behavior must change. This is where most people fail. They change their inner conversations for a day, maybe a week, and when immediate results do not appear, they revert to the old patterns. They see the person still treating them coldly, and they think, see, it does not work. They still do not care. But this is like planting a seed and then digging it up the next day to check if it has grown. The seed needs time in darkness to germinate. The new inner conversation needs time to restructure the energetic field before it manifests in visible behavior. You must persist. You must return to the desired conversation again and again, especially when evidence seems to contradict it. The inner conversation must become more real to you than the outer appearance. This is the test of faith in the metaphysical sense. Not blind belief, but the willingness to remain anchored in the desired state despite contrary evidence. You hear them saying, "I love you" in your mind, even when they say nothing aloud. You feel their presence as loving even when they are physically absent. You rehearse reconciliation even when separation seems permanent. This is not avoidance of reality. This is the construction of a new reality from the inside out, which is the only way reality has ever been constructed. The inner conversation is the bridge between imagination and manifestation. It is the mechanism through which your desires move from the invisible realm into visible form. When you master this practice, when you take absolute control over the conversations you hold in the privacy of your own consciousness, you become the author of every relationship you experience. No one can treat you badly if you refuse to have conversations in your mind where they treat you badly. No one can reject you if you only engage in inner dialogues where you are chosen, valued, and loved. The mirror must reflect what you hold in consciousness. This is law. This is the foundation of the resonance bond. The technique is simple. Every time you catch yourself in a negative inner conversation, stop. Deliberately rewrite it. Hear them saying what you want to hear. Feel what you want to feel. See them looking at you with the love and respect you desire. Do this without justification, without evidence, without waiting for permission from external circumstances. Do this because you understand that the inner conversation is the cause, not the effect. Do this until it becomes automatic, until your mind defaults to positive dialogues, until the new pattern becomes stronger than the old. The results will astonish you. The person will begin to mirror the new conversation. They will say things that echo the words you have been hearing them speak in your mind. They will act in ways that reflect the love you have been feeling them express in your imagination. and you will realize, perhaps for the first time, that you were never at the mercy of their mood, their choices, or their feelings. You were always the one in control, shaping their responses through the invisible but infinitely powerful force of your inner conversations. Master this, and you master the relationship. There is no other way. Chapter 4. The specific person. The question that haunts most hearts is not a general one about love or relationships. It is specific. It concerns one person whose face appears behind your closed eyes, whose name sends electricity through your chest, whose absence creates a void that no amount of distraction can fill. This is the specific person, the SP in the language of manifestation, the one individual who has become the focal point of your longing and your pain. The conventional wisdom tells you to move on, to find someone else, to accept that perhaps they are not meant for you. But the resonance bond operates on different principles entirely. The first truth you must understand about the specific person is this: stop waiting for them to choose you. That paradigm assumes they have independent power to grant or deny your happiness, as if they are a gatekeeper standing between you and love. This is the illusion of separation taken to its most painful extreme. In the unified field of consciousness where all creation originates, there is no version of reality where they have the power to reject you unless you first hold the belief that rejection is possible. Their apparent free will is not as free as you have been taught to believe. It is responsive, malleable, shaped by the energetic signature you broadcast in their direction. In the quantum field that underlies physical reality, all possible versions of every person exist simultaneously. There is a version of your SP who loves you completely, who thinks of you constantly, who considers you the most important person in their life. This version is not a fantasy or a wish. It is an actual probability existing in the field of infinite potential, waiting to be activated through your focused attention. At the same time, there exists a version who is indifferent, a version who is involved with someone else, a version who has forgotten you entirely. Which version manifests in your experienced reality depends entirely on which version you give your attention to. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They see the 3D version of their SP, the one who is currently cold, distant, or involved with another, and they fixate on this version. They check social media obsessively, looking for evidence of the person's disinterest. They replay past rejections, feeding those memories with emotional energy. They catastrophize about the future, imagining the person happy with someone else while they remain alone. All of this attention flows toward the undesired version, strengthening it, making it more solid in their reality. They are actively choosing the version they do not want through the mechanism of focused attention. The technique for manifesting the specific person requires you to do something that feels counterintuitive and even delusional in the beginning. You must ignore the 3D version entirely. That cold person who barely texts you back, who posts pictures with other people, who seems to have moved on. That person is not the real version. That person is an echo, a residual manifestation of your old beliefs, old fears, old states of consciousness that have not yet fully dissolved from your experience. That person is the equivalent of seeing your reflection in a mirror still wearing yesterday's clothes, even though you changed hours ago. The reflection is updating, but it lags behind the internal shift. You must turn your attention away from this echo and tune into the version of your SP who already loves you. This version exists with the same validity as the cold version, which is to say neither version is more real than the other until you collapse the probability through observation and belief. You access this loving version not through physical evidence, but through assumption. You decide without justification or proof that this is the true version of the person. You begin to think from this assumption rather than toward it. You do not hope they will love you someday. You accept that they love you now in the present moment, in the dimension of consciousness that precedes physical manifestation. This assumption must be maintained regardless of what the physical senses report. When they do not text you, you do not interpret this as evidence of disinterest. You assume they are busy or processing their feelings or being guided by the universe to reach out at a better time. When you see them with someone else, you do not collapse into jealousy or despair. You recognize that the 3D is simply showing you an old story that has not yet updated to reflect your new internal state. You remain anchored in the assumption that you are chosen, you are loved, you are the priority. This is not denial. This is selective attention given to the version of reality you are consciously creating. The old version of your SP must fade when you withdraw attention from it. This is how consciousness works. What you feed with attention grows stronger. What you starve of attention grows weaker. When you stop checking their social media, stop replaying painful memories, stop imagining worst-case scenarios, you are cutting off the energy supply to the undesired version. That version begins to lose its grip on your experienced reality. It becomes less solid, less frequent, less believable. Meanwhile, the version you are feeding with positive assumption, with imagined conversations of love, with the feeling of being chosen, this version grows stronger. It begins to bleed through into your 3D experience in small ways at first, then larger ones. Many people resist this teaching because it seems to require them to live in fantasy while ignoring facts. But this objection misunderstands the nature of facts. A fact is simply a manifestation that has already occurred, a point of historical data about what has been created in the past. Facts tell you nothing about what can be created in the future. The person who was cold to you last week was responding to the energy you broadcast last month. The person who ignored your message yesterday was mirroring the belief you held 2 weeks ago. By the time you see evidence in the physical world, it is already outdated information. You cannot change the past, but you can absolutely change which version of the person manifests in your future by changing which version you assume is real now. The specific person is not off limits to you. There is no divine decree that says you cannot be with them. There is no karmic law preventing your union. There is only the law of assumption, which states that you experience whatever you assume to be true about yourself and others. If you assume they do not want you, they will not want you. If you assume they are in love with someone else, they will be in love with someone else. If you assume you are the most important person in their world, you will become the most important person in their world. The choice is yours, and it has always been yours, even when you were convinced that you were powerless and they held all the cards. This is not manipulation. This is not forcing someone against their will. The version of them that loves you is as much them as the version that does not. You are not creating false feelings or overriding their autonomy. You are simply selecting which version of an already existing possibility you will experience. In the quantum field, they love you and they do not love you simultaneously. Your consciousness collapses the wave function into one definite experience. You are not creating their love. You are revealing it, bringing it forward from potentiality into actuality through the power of your assumption. The work, then, is internal. It is not about what you say to them, how you look, what you post online, or how often you reach out. Those external actions may have a role, but they are not the source of the change. The source is your inner conviction that you are already chosen by them, that the loving version is the true version, that the relationship you desire already exists in consciousness and is simply waiting to project itself into three-dimensional form. Hold this conviction with unwavering consistency, and the SP must respond, not because you convinced them, but because you changed the energetic signature that determines which version of them you experience. The specific person is yours if you claim them, not through desperation, not through chasing, not through trying to prove your worth. You claim them by deciding, in the silent authority of your own consciousness, that they are already yours. You claim them by refusing to accept the evidence of their current coldness as final truth. You claim them by tuning into the frequency where they love you and remaining there until the physical world updates to match. This is the path. This is the law. This is how the specific person becomes yours, not because you convinced them, but because you never doubted that they already were. Chapter 5. The Whisper Method. In the deep hours of the night, when the veil between minds grows thin and the barriers of waking consciousness dissolve, there exists a technique of profound power. It is called the Whisper Method, a practice of energetic suggestion that bypasses the logical defenses of the conscious mind and speaks directly to the subconscious where all behavior originates. This is not manipulation in the conventional sense. It is the conscious use of the telepathic channels that already connect all minds, the invisible cords through which thoughts and feelings flow between people, regardless of physical distance. What you are about to learn is not supernatural. It is simply the recognition of natural laws that have been forgotten. The foundation of the whisper method rests on a principle that modern physics and ancient mysticism both acknowledge. All minds are connected at a level beneath individual consciousness. There is no true separation between your thoughts and another person's thoughts. At the deepest level, there is only one mind experiencing itself through billions of apparent focal points. When you think of someone, you are not merely recalling their image in isolation. You are touching their consciousness, sending a signal across the invisible network that unites all awareness. They feel this signal even if they cannot name it or explain it. Your focused thought about them is their vague feeling about you. The technique begins with visualization. You imagine the person in a state of receptivity, most often sleeping, though deeply relaxed or meditative states work as well. Sleep is ideal because the conscious mind, with its filters and defenses, is temporarily inactive. The subconscious is more accessible, more open to suggestion. You picture them lying in bed, their breathing slow and steady, their face peaceful. You see this with as much detail as possible. The specific location does not matter. Whether you know where they actually are at this moment is irrelevant. You are working in consciousness, not in physical space. The image you create is the bridge. Once the visualization is stable, you move closer in your imagination. You position yourself near them. Some practitioners sit beside the bed, others lean close to their ear. The specific posture matters less than the feeling of proximity, the sense that you are close enough for them to hear you. Then you begin to whisper, not with your physical voice, but with the voice of consciousness, the silent speech that carries intention and meaning without sound. You whisper directly into their ear, and what you whisper is the truth you want them to know, the feeling you want them to have, the action you want them to take. The words must be simple, direct, and stated as present tense fact. Not "I want you to miss me," but "you miss me." Not "I hope you will text me," but "you are texting me." Not "please love me," but "you love me." The subconscious mind does not respond well to requests or pleas. It responds to declarations, to statements of what is. When you whisper "you miss me," you are not asking their permission or hoping they will comply. You are informing their subconscious of a reality that already exists in consciousness, and their subconscious accepts this information without question, because it has no filter for distinguishing between a thought that originated within and a thought that originated without. This is the secret of telepathic influence. The subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between its own thoughts and thoughts received from outside. All thoughts feel like my thoughts to the person experiencing them. When you whisper into their consciousness, "You are thinking about me," they will later have the experience of thinking about you and believe it was their own spontaneous thought. They will reach for their phone to text you and believe it was their own decision. They will feel drawn to reach out and believe it was their own desire. They have no awareness that the impulse originated from your focused intention. The emotional component is crucial. The whisper method is not effective if you merely recite words mechanically. You must infuse the words with feeling. When you whisper "you love me," you must feel the truth of this statement in your own body. You must feel how it would feel for them to love you, and you must project that feeling toward them as you whisper. The feeling is what carries the message across the telepathic channel. Words without feeling are empty vehicles. Feeling without words is powerful, but less directed. The combination of focused words and genuine emotion creates an energetic transmission that the other person cannot help but receive. Some practitioners repeat the whisper multiple times, like a mantra. "You miss me." "You are thinking about me." "You are reaching out to me." Others prefer to whisper different statements, creating a full conversation. "You realize you love me." "You regret how you treated me." "You understand I am the one for you." There is no single correct approach. The method adapts to the practitioner's style and the specific situation. The consistency that matters is this. The statement must be repeated with belief and feeling until it feels natural. until you can whisper it without doubt or desperation, until it simply feels true. The frequency of practice varies among those who use this technique. Some whisper nightly, making it a ritual before sleep. Others whisper only when they feel called to, when the intuition arises that the person is particularly receptive at that moment. What matters more than frequency is the quality of the session. 10 minutes of focused, feeling-infused whispering is worth more than an hour of distracted mechanical repetition. You must be present, you must be clear on what you are conveying, and you must believe that the message is being received. Many hesitate before attempting the whisper method because it feels like a violation of the other person's free will. This concern, while understandable, is based on a misunderstanding of how will functions in a unified field of consciousness. The other person's behavior toward you is never the result of pure free will operating in isolation. It is always a response to the energetic signals you are broadcasting, the assumptions you hold, the self-concept you maintain. When you whisper to their subconscious, you are not overriding their will. You are providing a different signal for them to respond to. They remain free to act according to their nature, but their nature shifts in response to the new information you have planted. Consider this. You have been broadcasting signals to their subconscious all along, whether you realized it or not. Every time you thought of them with fear, with lack, with desperation, you were whispering to their subconscious, "I am not enough. You do not want me. Please love me." And their subconscious received these messages and shaped their behavior accordingly. They pulled away because your unconscious whispers told them to. The whisper method simply makes this process conscious and intentional. Instead of broadcasting fear and lack, you broadcast love and certainty. You whisper the truth of the relationship you want, and their subconscious accepts this truth just as readily as it accepted the fearful messages you sent before. The results of the whisper method often appear within days, sometimes hours. The person begins to think of you more frequently. They reach out unexpectedly with a message or call. They bring you up in conversations with others. They find themselves drawn to check your social media or drive past places you frequent. These are not coincidences. These are the direct effects of the subconscious messages they received from you during your whisper sessions. Their conscious mind invents reasons for these actions. "I was just in the neighborhood," or "I happened to think of you." But the true cause is the energetic suggestion you planted in their subconscious mind. For maximum effectiveness, pair the whisper method with daytime visualization and inner conversations. The whisper works on their subconscious at night, while the daytime practices work on your own state and reinforce your assumptions. Together, these techniques create a complete system for restructuring the relationship from the inside out. You are not merely hoping they will change, you are actively creating the change through multiple channels, addressing both their subconscious receptivity and your own conscious state. The combination is formidable. Some report that the person they whispered to later mentions dreams of them or admits to thinking of them unexpectedly. When this happens, it is direct confirmation that the message was received, but confirmation is not necessary for the method to work. Trust the process even without visible results. The subconscious changes occur beneath the surface before they manifest in observable behavior. Continue whispering with belief and feeling, and the physical evidence will follow. The delay between cause and effect is simply the time it takes for consciousness to translate into form. The whisper method is not a replacement for internal work. It is a supplement, a tool to be used alongside the fundamental practices of changing your self-concept and maintaining the state of the wish fulfilled. If you whisper, "You love me," to them at night, but spend your days feeling unlovable and rejected, the conflicting signals will cancel each other out. The method is most powerful when your conscious state aligns with the message you are whispering. When you whisper, "You choose me," from a state of knowing you are already chosen, the message lands with full force. When you whisper the same words from a state of desperate hoping, the message is weakened by your doubt. This is energetic suggestion at its most refined. Not coercion, not force, but the gentle planting of truth in receptive soil. You are not making them love you against their will. You are making them aware of the love that already exists in the version of reality you are bringing forth. You are whispering to their higher self, the part of them that is connected to you in the unified field, telling it what is true in the dimension you are creating. And their higher self, receiving this information, adjusts their conscious thoughts and behaviors to align with it. This is the whisper method. This is how thoughts become things, how consciousness shapes form, how the invisible becomes visible through the bridge of focused intention spoken in the silence of the night. Chapter 6. Self-love as gravity. If you wish to understand why relationships form, deepen or dissolve, you must first understand gravity. Not the physics of masses attracting each other in space, but the metaphysical principle that operates identically in the realm of human connection. In the solar system, planets orbit a sun because the sun's mass creates a gravitational field so powerful that celestial bodies cannot help but be drawn into its pull. The sun does not chase the planets. The sun does not prove its worthiness to the planets. The sun simply is massive, radiant, self-contained, and the planets have no choice but to circle it. You are meant to be the sun in your relational universe. But most people have dimmed their light to the point where they become planets themselves, orbiting others and wondering why they feel so powerless. Self-love is not a luxury or a feel-good concept promoted by wellness influencers. It is the gravitational force that determines who enters your orbit and how they behave once they arrive. When your self-love is weak, when you do not value yourself, when you seek external validation to fill the void of internal insufficiency, you create a gravitational field so weak that people drift in and out of your life at random. You chase them, you cling to them, you beg them to stay, because without their presence you feel like you are floating untethered in space. This is the condition of most people's relationships, planets seeking other planets for stability, when what they truly need is to become the sun. The mathematics of attraction are merciless. People are not drawn to neediness, insecurity, or self-rejection. These qualities create an energetic repellent, a signal that broadcasts, "I am incomplete and I need you to complete me." This signal is felt by others at a subconscious level, and it triggers an instinctive withdrawal. Not because people are cruel, but because the nervous system naturally moves away from energy that feels draining or demanding. When you approach someone from a place of lack, you are energetically reaching toward them with grasping hands, and they feel the pull of that grasping as a threat to their own stability. They step back. They create distance. They go cold. Contrast this with the person who radiates self-love. This person does not need you. They want you, but the wanting comes from overflow rather than deficit. They enjoy your company, but they would be perfectly fine without it. They see value in you, but they also see equal value in themselves. This person creates a gravitational field so strong that others are naturally drawn toward them. Not because this person is perfect or physically flawless, but because their energy feels stable, abundant, complete. People want to orbit that energy. They want to bask in the warmth of someone who is their own sun, rather than a cold, distant planet looking for heat. This is why the advice, "just love yourself," is both completely correct and completely misunderstood. People hear it and think it means bubble baths and affirmations in the mirror. These things are fine, but they are not self-love. Self-love is a state of consciousness where you genuinely see yourself as valuable, worthy, and complete. It is not something you do, it is something you are. It is the foundation from which all healthy relating springs. When you love yourself, you do not tolerate poor treatment because you know you deserve better. You do not chase people who show disinterest because you are not desperate to convince anyone of your worth. You simply exist in your fullness, and people either match that frequency or they fall away. Either outcome is acceptable to you because your stability does not depend on any particular person. The transformation from planet to sun requires a fundamental shift in how you perceive yourself. You must stop seeing yourself through the eyes of others and start seeing yourself through the eyes of truth. The truth is that you are a unique expression of consciousness that will never exist again in exactly this form. You are inherently valuable not because of what you achieve or how you look or who loves you, but because you exist. Your existence itself is the miracle. When you grasp this at a level deeper than intellectual understanding, When you feel it in your bones, your entire energetic signature changes. You stop seeking and start attracting. You stop chasing and start choosing. Most people have inverted the equation. They believe that if they can just get that person to love them, then they will finally feel lovable and will be able to love themselves. This is backwards. The relationship you have with yourself is the template for every other relationship you will ever have. If you do not love yourself, no amount of external love will fill the void. You will reject it, sabotage it, or interpret it as pity rather than genuine affection. The person who loves you will grow exhausted, trying to convince you of something you refuse to believe about yourself. But when you love yourself first, when your internal sun is already burning bright, the love others offer you simply adds to your abundance, rather than trying to fill your lack. This is the concept of the prize. In healthy relating dynamics, both people see themselves as the prize, not in an arrogant or competitive way, but in a simple recognition of inherent value. You are the prize and they are lucky to have you. Simultaneously, they are the prize and you are lucky to have them. This creates equality, the level ground necessary for the resonance bond to function. But if you see them as the prize and yourself as the lucky contestant who won their attention, you have created the pedestal problem all over again. The gravitational field collapses. They look down at you from their elevated position, and you wonder why they treat you with condescension or indifference. The irony is that people are most attracted to you when you are least desperate for their attraction. This seems cruel until you understand the energetic mechanics. Desperation creates a vacuum, a pulling energy that feels uncomfortable to others. Indifference or self-sufficiency creates a fullness, a stable energy that others want to be near. When you are obsessed with getting someone to love you, you are broadcasting need and need repels. When you are content with or without them, secure in your own value regardless of their response, you are broadcasting abundance, and abundance attracts. This is not game playing or manipulation. This is simply how energy moves. Building self-love as gravity requires consistent internal work. You must catch yourself in moments of self-rejection and consciously choose a different response. When you look in the mirror and criticize your appearance, you are weakening your gravitational field. When you compare yourself to others and find yourself lacking, you are dimming your light. When you tolerate poor treatment because you do not believe you deserve better, you are signaling to the universe that you are a planet, not a sun. Each of these moments is an opportunity to choose differently, to affirm your value, to treat yourself with the respect you wish to receive from others. The practical application is straightforward. Begin to make decisions that honor your worth. If someone treats you with disrespect, withdraw your presence rather than trying to convince them to treat you better. If someone is inconsistent with their attention, stop making them a priority in your thoughts. If someone shows through their actions that they do not value you, believe them and redirect your energy elsewhere. These are not punishments you inflict on them. These are boundaries you establish for yourself. Declarations that your energy is valuable and will not be wasted on those who do not recognize its worth. This is how you become the sun. As your self-love strengthens, you will notice changes in how people respond to you. The ones who were taking you for granted will suddenly start to pay attention. The ones who were cold will warm up. The ones who disappeared will resurface. This is not magic. This is the gravitational field in action. You change the signal you were broadcasting from "please love me" to "I love myself." That shift in frequency is felt by everyone in your energetic field, and they unconsciously adjust their behavior to match the new standard you have set. Some will rise to meet you at the new level. Others will fall away because they cannot operate at that frequency. Both outcomes serve you because you are no longer willing to accept low vibrational connections just to avoid being alone. Self-love is not selfish. It is the most generous thing you can cultivate because it allows you to love others from a place of wholeness rather than woundedness. When you are your own sun, you can warm others without burning out. You can give without resentment because you are giving from overflow. You can love without attachment because your happiness does not depend on how they respond. This is the foundation of healthy relating, and it begins with the recognition that you are inherently valuable, eternally worthy, and complete within yourself. Relationships then become a celebration of abundance, rather than an attempt to fill a void. This is self-love as gravity. This is how you become the sun. And once you become the sun, the planets have no choice but to orbit. This is law. Muda chapter 7, the vacuum of need. Need is the most powerful repellent in the universe. This is a difficult truth to accept because need often feels like love, feels like caring, feels like the most natural response to wanting someone in your life. But energetically, need is not love, it is lack personified. When you say either aloud or in the silence of your consciousness, "I need you," what you are actually declaring is, "I do not have you." This declaration sends a signal into the quantum field, and the universe, which is nothing if not obedient to your commands, responds by maintaining the state of not having. You have ordered it through your energetic signature, and it delivers exactly what you have requested. Continued separation from the thing you need. The mechanics of this are simple once you understand the law of assumption. The universe does not respond to your desires. It does not respond to your wishes or your hopes. It responds only to the state you are occupying, the consciousness you are broadcasting, the identity you are claiming. When you are in a state of needing something, you are simultaneously in a state of not having it. These are two sides of the same coin. You cannot need what you already have. You can only need what you believe is absent from your experience, and so the very act of needing creates and perpetuates the absence. Consider how you relate to things you genuinely possess. You do not need oxygen in the sense of desperately seeking it. You have oxygen. It is always present, always available, taken for granted in the best possible sense. You breathe it without thought, without anxiety, without checking to make sure it is still there. This is the consciousness of having. You do not sit around worried that oxygen might disappear or that you might lose access to it. You simply assume its constant availability, and it is constantly available. This is the state you must cultivate in relation to love, to relationships, to the specific person you desire, not the state of needing them, but the state of having them. The vacuum of need manifests in countless behaviors that push people away while the person engaging in those behaviors believes they are drawing the person closer, checking your phone obsessively to see if they texted, analyzing their social media for clues about their feelings, asking mutual friends what they said about you, sending multiple messages when one goes unanswered. These actions feel like expressions of care, but energetically they are expressions of lack. They are you saying through your behavior, "I do not have their attention, I do not have their love, I do not have their commitment, and I need it desperately." The person feels this energetic pressure even if they cannot articulate it, and they instinctively create distance to escape the suffocating weight of your need. The shift required is from needing to having. This is not a matter of pretending you have something you do not. This is a matter of recognizing that at the level of consciousness where all things are created, you already have everything. The version of reality where you and the person you desire are in a loving relationship already exists in the quantum field. It is as real as any other potential reality. The question is not whether it exists. The question is whether you will tune into that version or continue to tune into the version where you are separate and longing. Your state of consciousness is the dial that determines which broadcast you receive. To occupy the state of having is to move through your day feeling the way you would feel if the thing you desire were already fully manifested. How would you feel if the person you love had just texted you a heartfelt message? You would feel secure, pleased, maybe slightly smug. You would not be frantically checking your phone because you would already know the message was coming or had already arrived. How would you feel if you were in a committed relationship with them? You would feel at peace, grounded, no longer searching. There would be a quiet satisfaction, a sense of completion. This is the state you must practice. Not future tense, "I will feel this when it happens," but present tense, "I feel this now because it is already true in consciousness." The practical difficulty arises when the physical senses contradict this state. They have not texted, you are not in a relationship. The evidence seems to scream that you do not have what you claim to have. This is the test. This is where most people collapse back into need, using the lack of evidence as justification for their anxiety. But the entire premise of manifestation is that consciousness creates the physical, not the other way around. The physical world is always showing you the results of past states, old consciousness, previous assumptions. If you allow current physical evidence to determine your state, you will be forever trapped in a loop of manifesting more of what you have already manifested. The past will recreate itself endlessly. To break the loop, you must stand firm in the state of having despite zero physical confirmation. This is what Neville Goddard meant by walking by faith, not by sight. Faith in this context is not religious belief. It is the willingness to maintain a state of consciousness that contradicts current evidence, because you understand that the state is causal and the evidence is merely effectual. You are choosing the future you want by claiming it as your present reality in consciousness. The physical world will catch up. It has no choice. But you must go first. You must be the one who occupies the state before the evidence appears. The vacuum created by need extends beyond romantic relationships. It appears in every area where you are trying to get something from outside yourself that you believe you lack internally. The person who needs approval creates situations where approval is withheld. The person who needs money creates situations where money is scarce. The person who needs success creates obstacles to success. This is not punishment from a cruel universe. This is simply the mechanics of creation. Need equals lack, and lack perpetuates itself. The only way out is to shift into the state of having, to claim internal possession of the quality or experience you desire before it shows up externally. In relationships, this means you must stop trying to get love and start being love. Stop trying to get attention and start giving it to yourself. Stop trying to get validation and start validating yourself. When you need nothing from another person because you have given yourself everything, you become magnetic in a way that neediness can never achieve. People want to be around those who are full, not those who are empty and looking to be filled. The full person radiates warmth and stability. The empty person radiates cold desperation. One attracts, the other repels. The choice of which person you will be is entirely within your control. The technique is to catch yourself in moments of need and consciously flip the script. When you feel the urge to check if they texted, pause. Take a breath. Remind yourself, I do not need to check because I already know they are thinking of me. I am secure in their affection. When you feel anxiety about whether they will reach out, pause. Redirect. They will reach out because they always do. I am a priority in their life. When you feel the vacuum of lack trying to pull you into frantic action, ground yourself in the state of having. Feel what it feels like to already possess what you desire. Breathe into that feeling. Let it fill you. Return to it again and again until it becomes more familiar than the feeling of lack. This is not spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. This is not pretending everything is fine when you are suffering. This is the recognition that your suffering is caused by the state you are occupying, and you have the power to occupy a different state. The suffering is real, but it is not inevitable. It is the result of identifying with lack, with need, with the belief that you are incomplete without the other person. When you shift into the state of having, the suffering dissolves not because circumstances changed, but because you changed the lens through which you are viewing circumstances. The relationship exists in consciousness. The person loves you in consciousness. You are together in consciousness. And consciousness is the only reality that matters because everything physical flows from it. The vacuum of need must be dissolved through the cultivation of internal fullness. You cannot eliminate need by fighting it, by trying to suppress it through willpower. You eliminate need by replacing it with having. You fill the vacuum not with more seeking, but with the recognition that what you seek is already present in the dimension where all creation occurs. This is the shift from chasing to claiming, from hoping to knowing, from waiting for permission to granting it to yourself. When you make this shift, the person you need becomes the person you have, not because they changed, but because you finally tuned into the version of reality where they were always yours. The vacuum collapses into fullness. The need dissolves into having, and the relationship you longed for appears in physical form, not as a reward for your patience, but as the natural result of occupying the state where it already existed. This is law. Dotuand, Chapter 18, Dissolving the Old Story. Every person in your life exists in two places simultaneously, in the external world where they walk and breathe and make choices, and in the internal world of your consciousness where they live as a story you have written about who they are. This story is not the person. It is your interpretation of the person, your collection of memories and judgments and meanings you have assigned to their behavior. The story feels true because you have told it to yourself so many times that it has hardened into fact in your mind. But it is not fact. It is fiction solidified through repetition. And this story, not the actual person, is what you are in a relationship with. When someone hurts you, the pain of the initial event fades within days or weeks. What keeps the pain alive is the story you continue to tell about the event. They hurt me. They do not care about me. They betrayed me. They showed their true nature. You rehearse this story in your mind like a script for a play that never ends. You share it with friends, seeking validation for your interpretation. You use it as evidence for larger narratives about relationships, about people, about your own unworthiness. And with each retelling, the story grows more solid. It becomes a groove carved deep into your consciousness, a pattern that must repeat itself because you keep feeding it energy. The person on the other end of this story feels its weight. Consciousness is not confined to individual minds. It is a shared field in which all thought occurs. When you hold someone in a negative story, they feel it as a pressure, a heaviness, a sense that you are relating to them through a filter of past pain rather than present possibility. This makes genuine connection impossible. They cannot show up as a new person because you are actively holding them in the role of the old person, the one who hurt you, the one who proved your fears correct. The old story is a prison for both of you, but you are the warden. You hold the key. You are the one who decides when they are released. Forgiveness is essential, not for their sake, but for yours. This is not forgiveness in the moral sense of granting pardon to someone who wronged you. This is forgiveness in the metaphysical sense of releasing the energetic cord that keeps the old story alive. When you forgive, you are not saying their behavior was acceptable. You are saying you refuse to carry it any longer. You are withdrawing the energy that has been animating the story of victimhood, and in doing so, you create space for a new story to emerge. The person cannot become different in your experience until you stop insisting through your consciousness that they remain the same. The technique for dissolving the old story is called revision, a practice taught by Neville Goddard and others who understood the malleable nature of the past. The past is not fixed. This seems impossible from the conventional understanding of time as linear and unchangeable, but consciousness does not experience time the way the physical body does. To consciousness, all moments exist simultaneously in an eternal now. The past is simply a memory you are choosing to replay. When you change the memory, you change the energetic structure that connects you to the person, and their behavior in the present must shift to reflect the new structure. To revise, you return to the memory of the painful event and rewrite it in your imagination. Not as fantasy or wish fulfillment, but as the creation of a new past that replaces the old one in your consciousness. If they ignored your message and you interpreted this as rejection, you revise the event. In your imagination, you see them responding warmly. You hear their kind words, you feel the relief and joy of being valued. You do not revise by imagining what should have happened. You revise by imagining what did happen in the version of reality you are now choosing to occupy. This is not denial. This is the conscious selection of which timeline you will energize with your attention. The revision must be done with feeling. Merely thinking about a different outcome is insufficient. You must enter the revised scene fully, with sensory detail and emotional engagement. You must feel the way you would have felt if it had actually occurred that way. The emotional charge is what collapses the old timeline and activates the new one. When you revise with sufficient intensity and belief, the old memory begins to fade. It loses its emotional grip on you. The story that once caused pain becomes neutral, then dissolves entirely, as if it never happened. Because in the timeline you are now occupying, it did not happen. The version of them who hurt you exists in a discarded timeline you are no longer giving energy to. This same practice applies to the overall story you hold about the relationship. If the story has been one of rejection, of them choosing others over you, of cold indifference and broken promises, you must revise the entire narrative, not event by event, but as a whole. You create a new story where they have always loved you, always chosen you, always treated you as a priority. You replay memories through this lens. Even actual painful events are reinterpreted. They were not ignoring you. They were busy preparing something for you. They were not with someone else. They were thinking of you the whole time. This is not delusion. This is the creation of a new past that allows for a different future. Many resist this practice because it seems dishonest, like lying to yourself about what really happened. But this objection assumes there is only one real version of events, which is false. Quantum physics reveals that multiple versions of every event exist simultaneously until observation collapses them into a single experienced reality. The version you experienced is not more real than the version you did not experience. It is simply the one you gave your attention to. Revision is the practice of redirecting attention to a version that serves you rather than wounds you. It is not dishonesty. It is conscious creation. The immediate effect of revision is internal peace. The anger, resentment, and hurt that characterized the old story simply dissolve. You find yourself unable to access those feelings with the same intensity. They become abstract, distant, like a movie you watched long ago rather than something that happened to you. This peace is the signal that the revision has taken root in consciousness. The energetic cord connecting you to the painful past has been severed, and you are now connected to a past where the pain never occurred. From this new foundation, the relationship must reorganize itself. The person must show up differently because you are no longer holding them in the role of the hurter. The external effects follow with a lag time that varies. Sometimes the person reaches out within days, expressing sentiments that align with the new story. They apologize without prompting. They explain away past coldness in ways that match your revision. They begin to treat you with the care and attention you have been imagining. Other times the shift is more gradual, a slow warming rather than a sudden transformation. The timeline does not matter. What matters is that you do not collapse back into the old story when evidence of it appears. The physical world is showing you the residue of the old timeline. Do not re-energize it by giving it attention. Stay anchored in the new story, and the old evidence will fade like smoke. This is not about erasing accountability or pretending harm did not occur. If someone is genuinely toxic, if the pattern is dangerous, revision does not obligate you to remain in connection with them. But for most relationships where pain occurred but love also existed, where hurt was inflicted but repair is possible, revision clears the energetic debris that prevents reconciliation. It allows both people to begin again, not by forgetting what happened, but by no longer being held hostage by the meaning that was assigned to what happened. The story changes, and with it, the relationship changes. The practice must be consistent. The old story has been told thousands of times. It has deep roots. One session of revision will not overwrite it. You must return to the new story again and again, especially when the old one tries to resurface. When you catch yourself thinking, "They always ignore me," stop. Revise. "They always respond to me." When the thought arises, "They hurt me," pause. Revise. "They love me." Layer upon layer, you build the new story until it becomes more familiar than the old. Eventually, the old story becomes inaccessible. You literally cannot remember the pain with the same vividness because you have overwritten it in consciousness. The old story is the ghost that haunts your present relationships. It is the invisible force that makes the person continue to act in ways that hurt you. Not because they want to hurt you, but because you keep holding them in the role of the one who hurts. Release them from this role through revision and forgiveness. Wash their image clean in your mind. See them as they could be, as they are in the highest version, as they exist in the timeline where they love you fully. Hold this image with consistency, and they will step into it. The mirror has no choice. The story you hold is the reality you experience. Change the story and you change everything. This is the power of revision. This is how the past is healed, not through time, but through conscious rewriting. And once the past is healed, the present opens into possibility. The old story dies, and the new story begins. This is liberation. This is how love is reborn. Chapter 9. The State of the Bridegroom. There is a state of consciousness that precedes every fulfilled relationship, a particular frequency that must be occupied before the external form can appear. It is called the state of the bride, or the state of the groom, depending on your identification, though the essence is identical regardless of the label. This state is not characterized by excitement or dramatic emotion. It is not the feeling of butterflies or the rush of new romance. It is something far quieter, far more powerful. It is the feeling of secure possession, of calm certainty, of being so completely anchored in the reality of the relationship that there is nothing left to seek, nothing left to hope for, nothing left to prove. Imagine for a moment that you are married to the love of your life. The wedding has passed. The honeymoon is over. You are in the everyday rhythm of shared existence. There is a ring on your finger, not as a symbol you must constantly check to ensure it is still there, but as a fact so integrated into your experience that you barely notice it anymore. This is the state of the bridegroom. It is boring in the most beautiful sense of the word. There is no drama, because drama arises from uncertainty, and in this state, there is no uncertainty. You know you are chosen. You know you are loved. You know you are home. The critical error most people make is attempting to manifest the relationship from a state of seeking rather than from this state of having. They visualize the wedding. They imagine the confession of love. They script the reconciliation. But they do this while feeling the emptiness of the relationship's absence. The visualization becomes an exercise in highlighting what they do not have rather than in claiming what they do have. They are looking forward to the state rather than living from the state, and this creates a perpetual condition of approaching but never arriving. The relationship remains forever on the horizon, visible but unreachable, because they are broadcasting the frequency of incompletion. To enter the state of the bridegroom is to make a radical shift in your internal experience. You stop imagining the relationship as something that will happen and start experiencing it as something that has happened. The past tense is crucial. Not I will be married, but I am married. Not they will love me, but they love me. Not we will be together, but we are together. This is not pretending. This is not lying to yourself. This is the recognition that in consciousness, where all things are created before they become physical, the relationship already exists. You are simply synchronizing your state with the version of reality where it is already manifest. The feeling of the state is one of relaxation. There is nothing to chase because you already have what you want. There is nothing to figure out because the path has already unfolded. There is nothing to worry about because the relationship is secure. You walk through your day with a sense of completion, as if a weight you did not know you were carrying has been lifted. This is not the high-energy feeling of hope. Hope still contains doubt, still implies that the thing might not happen. This is beyond hope. This is knowing. This is certainty so quiet and so deep that it requires no external validation. In practical terms, you begin to make choices from this state. How would you behave if you were already in the relationship you desire? You would not be checking their social media obsessively because you would already know where you stand. You would not be analyzing their every word for hidden meanings because their love would be obvious and constant. You would not be trying to make them jealous or prove your worth because you would already know you are chosen. You would move through life with a sense of security, of being anchored, of having a home base in another person. This is the energy you must embody now, before the physical evidence appears. The state of the bridegroom often manifests in subtle shifts in behavior that seem unrelated to manifestation, but are actually crucial to it. You stop talking about the person constantly with friends because people in secure relationships do not obsess, they simply enjoy. You stop consuming content about manifestation or relationship advice because you no longer need fixing strategies for a relationship that is already whole. You find yourself naturally doing things you would do if partnered, planning for two in small ways, feeling accompanied even when alone, making space in your life for another presence that you know is coming. Or rather, is already here in consciousness. The challenge is maintaining this state when the physical senses report otherwise. They have not called. You are not in a relationship. The evidence seems to contradict everything you are claiming in consciousness. This is the test, the initiation that separates those who manifest from those who merely wish. The state of the bridegroom requires you to live in the end, regardless of what the beginning or middle looks like. You must walk through days or weeks or months, feeling married while appearing single, feeling chosen while seeming rejected, feeling secure while circumstances suggest instability. This is the definition of faith in the metaphysical sense, not hoping it will work out, but knowing it already has at the level that matters. The collapse occurs when you give more weight to the physical than to the imaginal. If you enter the state of the bride and groom for an hour, but then spend the rest of the day anxious and checking your phone, you have abandoned the state. The hour of correct consciousness is negated by the 23 hours of anxious seeking. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need to feel the state with overwhelming emotion every moment. You simply need to return to it as your default, to make it the baseline frequency you operate from. Calm, secure, certain, not desperate, not hoping, not seeking, just at peace with what already is in consciousness. Many report that the physical manifestation arrives precisely when they stop caring about it, when they finally relax into the state so completely that the lack of external evidence no longer bothers them. This is not coincidence. The not caring is actually the perfection of the state. It is the point at which you are so anchored in the consciousness of having that the physical becomes irrelevant. You are not indifferent to the person. You are indifferent to the need for proof, because the reality in consciousness is so vivid, so real, so satisfying, that the three-dimensional confirmation becomes almost redundant. When you reach this point, manifestation is inevitable. The state of the bridegroom is also characterized by a certain quality of thought. Thoughts about the relationship are natural, easy, devoid of strain. You think of the person the way you think of your own arm, with casual assumption of presence. There is no effortful visualization, no forced affirmation, no desperate clinging to the idea. The relationship is simply part of your assumed reality, like gravity or the ground beneath your feet. It does not require constant attention, because things that are truly real do not require you to convince yourself of their existence. They simply are, and you know they are, and that is enough. To practice entering this state, create quiet moments where you simply sit with the feeling of being partnered, not imagining the future partnership, but feeling the present reality of it. Feel the ring on your finger, even if no ring is there. Feel the presence of another person in your home, even if you live alone. Feel the security of knowing someone is thinking of you, caring for you, choosing you. Let this feeling fill you without forcing it, without straining for it. It should feel like settling into something that already exists, rather than building something new. This is the difference between creating and claiming. You are not creating the relationship. You are claiming the one that already exists in consciousness. The mundane quality of this state cannot be overstated. People expect manifestation to feel dramatic, to arrive with fireworks and unmistakable signs. But the state of the bridegroom is the opposite of drama. It is the quiet after the storm, the settled peace after the question has been answered. It is sitting in your living room feeling content, feeling whole, feeling that everything is exactly as it should be. There is no lack. There is no longing. There is only the deep, abiding sense of completion. This is the state from which all lasting relationships manifest, not the state of desperate wanting, but the state of peaceful having. When you master this state, the relationship must manifest. Not because you deserve it, not because you worked hard for it, not because the universe rewards you, but because you have aligned your consciousness with the reality where it already exists. You have tuned your frequency to the channel where the relationship is broadcast. The lag between entering the state and seeing physical confirmation is simply the time it takes for three-dimensional reality to reorganize itself to match the template you have established in consciousness. But the manifestation is not in question. It is guaranteed by law. You are the bridegroom in consciousness. The physical ceremony is merely the echo of what has already occurred in the realm where all things are created. This is the final state, the end of seeking, the beginning of having, the place where you stand when you have finally realized that the relationship you wanted was never out there, subject to the whims of another person's free will. It was always here in consciousness, waiting for you to claim it. You claim it by entering the state of the bridegroom and refusing to leave, regardless of what the physical world shows you. You claim it by living from the end, by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, by being so certain of the relationship's existence in consciousness that the lack of physical evidence becomes irrelevant. This is mastery. This is how manifestation works. And this is how you, standing alone in an empty room, become married in consciousness. The rest is just the world catching up to what you already know. This is the state of the bridegroom. This is where you live now. This is your permanent address in consciousness. And from this address, the relationship must come to you. This is law. So an epilogue. You have traveled through the architecture of the resonance bond, through the mechanics of mirrors and pedestals, through the telepathic channels of inner conversations and whispered suggestions, through the gravitational pull of self-love and the dissolution of need, through the revision of old stories and the claiming of new states. All of this has been building toward a single recognition, a truth so simple that most people spend their entire lives avoiding it. You are not a beggar at the door of love. You are the architect of the house. No one can reject you unless you reject yourself first. This is not motivational rhetoric. This is the literal operating system of reality. The other person is a mirror with no will of its own, a surface that must reflect whatever you present to it. When you stand before the mirror seeing yourself as unworthy, the reflection shows unworthiness. When you see yourself as abandoned, the reflection shows abandonment. When you see yourself as the second choice, the reflection confirms this. But none of these reflections are final. None are fixed. They exist only as long as you maintain the inner image that creates them. The moment you change the image, the moment you see yourself as loved, as chosen, as valuable beyond measure, the mirror has no choice but to update. It does not happen instantly in physical time because the material world requires a moment to reorganize, to catch up with the shift in consciousness. But it does happen, it must happen. This is not hope. This is not faith in the sense of believing despite evidence. This is understanding the law, the mechanics, the inevitable consequence of causes you have set in motion through your own consciousness. Every relationship you have ever experienced was a perfect reflection of your internal state at the time. The person who loved you did so because you loved yourself. The person who left did so because you were holding the belief that you were not enough to make them stay. The person who treated you as an option did so because you saw yourself as less than a priority. None of this was punishment. None of it was random. It was all precise, mathematical, the universe showing you exactly what you were broadcasting so you could see what needed to change. The power then has always been yours, not theirs, not circumstances, not timing or fate or cosmic alignment. Yours. You are the operant power, the one who decides what will be experienced, what will manifest, what will show up in the three-dimensional theater of physical existence. This power has been functioning your entire life, often unconsciously, creating based on unexamined beliefs and inherited assumptions. But now you know. Now you understand. And with understanding comes the ability to use the power consciously, deliberately, to create the relationships you desire rather than the ones you fear. The final command is this: stop chasing the reflection. Every moment you spend trying to convince the other person to change, trying to prove your worth, trying to make them see what they are missing, every one of these moments is you shouting at the mirror, begging the reflection to smile while you continue to frown. It will never work. It cannot work. The mirror is not the source. You are the source. Change yourself in consciousness, and the mirror must change in form. This means no more pedestals. No more putting them above you, worshipping them from below, hoping they will grant you the gift of their attention. You stand beside them as an equal, or better yet, you stand as the prize yourself, radiating such self-worth that they cannot help but gravitate toward you. This means no more neediness, No more checking for validation, no more seeking evidence, no more desperate grasping. You shift from needing them to having them in consciousness, and their behavior shifts to reflect that having. This means no more holding on to old stories, the narrative of how they hurt you, how they rejected you, how they proved you were not enough. This story must be dissolved through revision and forgiveness, not for them but for you, so you can be free, so they can be free to show up as a new person, the version you are now tuning into, rather than the version you were locked into before. The past is not fixed. You hold the key, use it. This means living in the state of the bridegroom now, not later when they finally come around, not when they finally see your value. Now, feeling married in consciousness even if you are single in form. Feeling chosen even if they seem to choose others. Feeling secure even if the evidence suggests instability. This is not delusion. This is creation. This is how consciousness becomes form. You go first. You claim the state. And the world rearranges itself to match. The resonance bond is not a bond between two people in the way you were taught to think of relationships. It is the bond between your consciousness and its reflection in physical form. When you master your consciousness, when you take command of your state, when you recognize that you are the projector and they are the image on the screen, you step into a power that most people never access. You become the author of your relational reality. And from that position, there is no rejection, no loss, no heartbreak that is not first permitted by your own consciousness. You are not powerless. You never were. The pain you felt was real, but it was not inevitable. It was the result of unconsciously broadcasting frequencies that created unwanted reflections. Now you know how to change the broadcast. Now you understand the mechanics. Now you have the tools, the mirror principle, the dismantling of pedestals, the mastery of inner conversations, the whisper technique, the cultivation of self-love as gravity, the dissolution of need, the revision of old stories, the claiming of the fulfilled state. Use these tools, not once, not casually, but with the consistency and precision of someone who understands that this is not metaphor. This is mechanics. This is how reality works. Every day, return to the state. Every day, see them loving you in your mind. Every day, feel yourself as chosen, as valued, as the center of your own universe. And watch what happens. Not overnight, perhaps, but inevitably. The person must change. The relationship must shift. The mirror must reflect the new image you are holding. The final truth is this: there is no other who can save you or destroy you. There is only you, looking at yourself through countless mirrors, some of which happen to wear human faces. When you heal your relationship with yourself, every mirror heals. When you love yourself, every mirror shows you love. When you claim your worth, every mirror validates it. This is the resonance bond. This is the law. This is the end of suffering and the beginning of conscious creation. Stop chasing, start claiming. The reflection will follow. It has no choice. You are the projector. You always were. And the film you choose to run determines everything. Choose wisely. Choose consciously. Choose the version where you are loved, where you are chosen, where you are home. And then watch as the screen displays exactly what you have projected. This is your power. This is your inheritance. This is the resonance bond in operation. The mirror is waiting. What will you show it?